I was strolling on the moon one day in a merry, merry month of December. Now, May, when much to my surprise, a pair of bunny eyes. Do-do-do-do-do. Oh, is this a neat way to travel? Isn't it great?
December 14th, 1972. High in the Taurus-Littrow Valley, Commander Eugene Cernan and Geologist Schmitt prepared to leave the lunar surface. As Commander Cernan stepped off the moon, he spoke of peace and hope for all mankind. It was the end of the Apollo era, the last time human boots pressed into lunar dust. Today, we're going to honor that moment by building new Ware's 1/24th scale garage kit, Last Men on the Moon. This isn't just a model, it's a frozen moment in history. And here it is, Last Men on the Moon by New Ware. Now, the box is pretty small, nothing spectacular. We're going to do the unboxing live today, of course. Inside, as expected, you're going to get your instructions. Full 2 pages of it. It's going to show you the color patterns, color schemes on each of the suits. Some extra parts you're going to have to add. Alignment, positioning, the tools that these men brought with them. And yes, decals. Lots of them. Lots of tiny decals. My favorite. Gosh. Oh. Nothing against decals, but sometimes they're so small, they're very hard to handle. And at my age, my eyesight isn't getting any better. Yeah, I just disclosed my age, thanks. A little history of the 2 astronauts in the back. And getting into the meat of this garage kit. They're really well detailed. It's got some hefty weight to them. You see the helmets mounted on the base there. Oh, there's a very detailed base. We're going to be doing a lot more to this base later on in the video. And there you have Harrison Schmitt and Eugene Cernan's torsos. Very cool detail. Very, very great detailing here. These guys did a great job. There's a little bit of access that we're going to have to file away. There too. Looking around it. Oh, there's another piece there. And these are the accessories, the bags that are going at the exterior of their packs. And my favorite, the tiny decals. I believe that is the stem for the tool that Schmitt has in his hand. We're going to figure that out later, but for now, we're going to put all the unnecessary parts that we're working with back in the box. Before we get ready for cleanup, I always recommend wearing a mask, especially with resin. You do not want to inhale the small particles that are being sanded off. Tools being used today, metal filers, needle nose pliers for those hard to reach places. I got an X-Acto knife ready to go to shave off some extra material if we find it in between the legs where you can't reach. Pretty clean. Now the support structures on the packs are heavy. They are tough. We're gonna need to soften the resin up by boiling some water or pouring hot water over the supports and then cleanly snapping that off with an old pair of nippers that I have. Same thing here with the helmets. Very sturdy supports. However, they are very thick. They're very strong. And trust me, I tried. So again, hot water, a hair blow dryer on low heat will definitely soften it up. And as you can see, cut them through. We still need to sand the base, but clean cut on the packs. Clean cut on the helmets, even though we're going to smooth that down. And I'm going to show it live how I did it with an old pair of nippers. Now the base here is already warmed up, so it just took a couple of snaps and boom, clean. Still need to sand. So we're gonna get that process started. I have some high-end sanding loop sanding strips of 300 grit. I start with that and then I hit it off with the balancer to smooth it out. And the best thing about this, these can be used wet sand, which I always recommend wet sanding resin, so there's not particles jumping off your kit and inhaling it. Of course, don't forget to put the respirator on, nonetheless. Nice and smooth. Now after we're done sanding, we're gonna have to give this and the base and all the pieces a nice soapy bath to wash off any excess. As you can see, this is where the packs mount. We're just dry fitting them. I'm gonna hit them with a little bit of super glue. Looking good. Same thing, we're gonna line up the other pack. Hit it with a little super glue. Line up and dry fit the helmets. Hit those with some super glue. And here, make sure the helmet doesn't slip off. Check. Make sure it's on. And there you go. Next up, we got to add some effects. I have some wire here. This is going to be for the air tubing. It's going to come from the pack straight into the front. Same thing on the other astronaut, from the pack to the front. We'll shave those wires down, cut them to size. Same length. Hit the tips. Line it up. Hold it there for a brief moment. And there you go. On to the next. Little glue on the tip. Line it up. More glue. And there you go. Very easy effect. I believe the gauge that we're using is a electronic wire gauge that I found in a cell phone. I have a ton of electronics thrown around, so we use those as parts. Now, towards the end of the video, you'll find a little surprise that I did with these tubes. Now, there's going to be a tether. Again, I chose to use wires, but we're going to go in a different direction. After looking at a ton of NASA videos, I saw that the tethers going from the helmet to the packs were a lot thinner than what I originally installed. However, just for aesthetics, I still wanted to show you all what I did, my thought process during this build. Now, these are not air hoses. They're supposed to be very thin tethers, just in case the helmets get lost. They stay attached to the equipment and the Astro doesn't lose their equipment. And at the end, here's how the dry demo looks. Little dab of glue, and voila. Tethers. Now we're gonna work with the visors here. I chose my visor to stay eye level. Harrison's going to be lifted up a little bit because he's going to be working with the moon dust. Now on to the fun part. We're going to be using Mr. Finishing Surfacer 1500 Gray along mixed with Mr. Color Thinner. And we're going to get these all primed and ready to go. Sit back and enjoy. Now, remember, when you're priming, always go thin layers and build it up. Never just plop on a ton of paint. Doesn't work. You want to build up those layers, thin layers, until you get your end result. Thoroughly coated. What works about this primer and the surfacer in general is that it allows you to see those missed details or those sanding parts that you missed that you might want to get right before the paint. And again, build up those thin layers, layer after layer, until you get this end result. Don't rush into it. Once they're all dried up, they're looking good. And like I said, we're going to be replacing those helmet tethers. We're also going to be drilling in a small hole so we can install a hammer handle in the bag. And so, what a pain. The best thing about this is that I installed it upside down the first time around. And again, had to look at the pictures and then realized, well, it's got to be turned around, but that's how it goes. Mistakes do happen. Next up, we attached the saddlebags onto the pack. Again, just dry fitting them before we hit them with a little bit of super glue. Like so. And there you go. Same thing. And there's Harrison's pack. Looking good, looking good. I'm loving how this kit is coming together so far. I love the weight and sturdiness of the two astronauts. This company, Ware, did a great job replicating this moment in time with the Apollo 17 astronauts. Now, the packs are all set. Their equipment's all installed. A few accessories missing, but we're going to wait till the end to install those so we can work on these astronauts. Now, here's the hoses. I told you, snap them off. What we're going to do instead, we're going to use some plant wire, an old small dowel rod that I have here, and we're going to cut some small pieces to make the tabs where the tethering wire will be attached to. And it's about 1/2 mil. See there? I just attached them on there. Cut 2 more pieces for the other astronaut's helmet. And we're going to line them up with some tweezers. Make sure it's nice and straight. Hit them with some glue. Mind you, these pieces are big, so we're going to have to sand them down. And of course, I can't do all of this on camera, but it does take a little bit of work, a little bit of elbow grease, but we're going to get these tabs looking like they're small, meant to be there. Does take some time. I'm using some 300 grit sanding sticks that I have, and as you can see, it's already starting to get smaller and smaller. Then you see the other side there still needs to be worked on, but you see the difference. I'm going to work on the right side. Now, I don't smooth these down. I just use the 300 grit alone. The reason why is that I do give this surface, I want it to be gritty enough where the paint and the primer can stick. So we're just going to sand these down continuously. And then here's the end result. Yep. Now that looks appropriate. Much better than the tubing too. As you can see, finished for both. I sanded down all the edges. Now, with the plant wiring, just going to taper it down, measure it. Use my old nippers to cut it down to size. Now, this is the tricky part because you want to make sure that it's directly in the middle so it looks natural. Hit it with a little bit of glue, keep it in place, and voila. Start of a new wire. do that onto Cernan's. Make sure it's aligned. We're going to put it through the wire. Hit it with a little bit of super glue. And voila. Now on to the other side. And there you go. New helmet tethers. Looking good. I'm glad I used this. Looks a lot more realistic now. Here's the wires primed up, ready for paint. Onto the primary paints, we're going to start off with Vallejo's Model Air White. Again, building small layers, taking your time, not oversaturating one area with paint. And here's the end result. Next, we're going to work with the helmet lens, with the visor, using Tamiya black, giving it a high gloss. The reason for the high gloss is we're going to go over it with a little bit of gold later on for a reflection. I'm taking my time, using a full stroke of the brush. Now these are some of my favorite brushes that I have on hand. Looking good, steady. But once we finish these up, we're going to start with the next helmet. Again, taking your time, full strokes. Making sure to hit every corner of it. And the end result explains itself. These are my brushes, Artist Opus. Love these brushes. Next, we're going to hit up the belt line. We're going to use the same Tamiya black, going from one end to the other. And this one I'm going to do off camera because it's so small, very hard to see the belt lines. Look, there's the end result. Question for you folks. What colors do you see in this picture? Tan? Or is it gray? I don't know. But we're still going to use wooden deck tan. Sent the pictures out to my customer. This was the response I got. So we undid that nonsense. We're still going to use wooden deck tan on some bits and pieces, like the outer straps and the axe handle, as well as Cernan's patches on the front. He has 3 of them. Again, take your time, folks. Layer by layer of paint. I build up my layers here. Next, we're gonna tab up these little tabs with a royal light gray, or Tamiya's XF80. One of my favorite grays, believe it or not. Again, taking your time to color in all these tabs on both of the packs. Looking good. Same thing on Schmitt's. End result. Next up, we're going to use Tamiya's flat red to paint up Commander Cernan's commander stripes. Voila. I'm going to do his bands. Start with his armband. Full smooth strokes. Looking good. What's tough about these resin models is the amount of creases and detail. they put on the astronaut suits made it kind of hard to paint straight lines. So we're going to use some masking tape to mask up the top of the Cernan's helmet here. Start painting his commander lines on top. Let that sit there for a little bit until it fully dries. Now we're going to use LIN gray for the boot covers. Use that same gray for the gloves as well. Fingertips, we're going to touch it up with the light blue. Right there, Tamiya light blue for the boots. And there's the end result. Now we're going to hit up the metal products, or the metal pieces on here, like the axe handle, hammer handle, and belt buckle, using metal gray XF56 by Tamiya. Tamiya is one of my favorite lines of paint, usually my go-tos for things like this in particular. Small details. There's the hammer handle, turned right side up this time. Belt buckle. Taking our time to work. There's the axe handle. Sorry, the axe head. Can't forget Harrison's belt buckle. Axe head on his pack. And the end result. I'm going to paint some white straps. Make it look like the belt's being held up. Again, we're using the Vallejo white for the straps here. Just one straight stroke down. There you are. Easy peasy. Belt straps. Next, we're going to go back to our X1 black for their straps, for their arm pads, for their data pads. Now we're going to work with these hose knobs here. I'm going to use Mr. Color Metallic Red for the first one. Then we're going to use a Mr. Metallic Color Metal Blue for the rest of the knobs. Taking my time. It's a lot of little crevices there, but here's the end result. Shiny. Ah, the decals. Lots of small, tiny decals, and man, are they tiny. Let's take a little deep look at this and get started. Now, what I would always recommend with decals is to double check that they're not united. I figured out the hard way that these all needed to be individually cut. They weren't pre-cut on there. So after some extra off cutting on the camera, we're going to use some Mark Fit Strong to get this to kind of melt down into that resin. And there you go, American flag. I'm going to line up on Harrison's pack there. Hit that with some Mark Fit and pat it down. Make sure we get all the excess liquid out. And there you go. Got the instruction guides, the manuals on the packs. Line it up, pat it down, and on to the next. So a lot of these decals we're going to be doing off camera, especially the small labels and warning signs, because they are so small that the camera can't even focus on them. See how hard it is to just focus on the NASA. But I am able to show you the larger ones, like the ones that are going on the arm sleeves. Pat that down. That's on the arm. Got their name labels. It's great printing. We're going to put the NASA logo next on that one. It was great printing because you can, even on the smallest of the decals, you can read the text. You can read Schmitt. You can read Cernan clearly. The camera labels, the backpack labels, they were incredible in detail. I gotta give New Ware a thumbs up on this kit. It was superb. All the details were spot on. And here's the end result. All the decals are finalized. Overall, it took me about an hour in total. And we're going to mount on the video camcorders. Camcorder 2, Cernan's. Now we're going to use some gray panel lining from Tamiya, and we're going to dirty up the pants because they've been walking on the moon. So we're going to give some of these astronaut suits some highlights, but not some dark highlights. We're just doing some subtle ones. We're not overpowering the entire suit with gray. We're just doing some cracks and crevices. We're going to do in places where there's going to be some natural shadow. As you can see, I'm doing it on the front side of Harrison's suit, where he's going to be bent over the moon surface, digging up rocks as a geologist. And then I'm going to use some white spirit to remove from access, clean up anything I don't want. Take your time with this. And there we are. We added some shadows, some details. Later on, we're going to add some pastels to the legs. On the base, we're going to be doing 3 different types of grays. First off, I'm going to use IJN or XF87 as a base. I want those dark details on the base level. After we finish that, we're going to hit it up with a lighter gray with XF54. Last coat's going to be XF80 or Royal Light Gray for the highlights. Now we're going to go to the titanium gold and start painting the reflector's visor with my favorite brush, a 000. I'm going to use Tamiya's titanium gold to paint sort of the moon surface reflection. Now originally their visors are gold, but I painted them black. Why? Because they have the reflection of space on their visors. As you can see, that looks pretty darn good. Now we're going to start lining up the astronauts and the placement. I want to make sure I dry fit them exactly where they need to go. Finish off the visor on Harrison's. His is bigger since he's going to be looking at the lunar surface. Lastly, I want to use some type of clay to cover up their positions because, like I said earlier, we are going to be doing something extra for the customer on this moon base. So I'm going to cover up the areas where the astronauts are going to be standing so my work doesn't affect that. We're going to finish off the visor reflection using metallic gray Tamiya. I want to add Harrison into Cernan's visor reflection there, as you can see. Now we're going to use some gravel accent that I have. Very fine dust. I have gravel. That's larger, smaller rock formations there. And we're going to spread it throughout the lunar surface to give it more grit and more texture. So spray it on with some putty paste that I have. We're gonna brush it all on there and start applying. As you can see, I sprinkle it on and just brush it in, let the glue take over, apply some more on there. And again, just like the painting, I added in layers like Salt Bay does. And there's the end result. After adding those 3 grays back into the mix, this is our final result. A base with texture and multiple grays. Very hard to tell in the camera, but there's a lot of shade there. We're gonna dry fit them back into place, get them finally settled in, and let the glue dry and set. And there it is. Astronauts have landed. I really am digging this texture. Now we're gonna be working with Mr. Hobby's weathering pastels. We are gonna start with some light brown or sand. Then we're gonna work in some orange, some burnt rust. We're gonna work in some little bit of black in some areas. And we're gonna just mix everything up. Finally, we're gonna use light gray for the moon dust and for the surrounding area. And we're definitely gonna be heavy on that one. This is also gonna serve as a highlight. Finally getting into the astronaut's pant legs. Generously applying this in every little area. And there you go. There's an image on the top left of the real lunar surface of the Taurus-Littrow site compared to mine. We're going to finish off the highlights and dusting off and blending in whatever is left here. Lastly, we're going to use a metal rod. I'm going to drill some holes into the packs and create their radio antennas. Apply some super glue, let it dry, measure it and cut it down. Repeat. Add the sweeper, gluing that on, and there's the final result. What do you guys think? Overall, it took about 2.5 days and about 12 hours of work to get this done. But lastly, I want to label this model in honor of my client, last man on the moon, Apollo 17. So folks, I want to thank you all for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed watching me build this kit. And if you have any questions about things that I did, techniques or processes that I ran, please make sure that you drop them in the comments. Don't forget all to subscribe, give us a like, share the word, because here at this channel, we love to build and we're going to consistently build. I'm glad to be back with you after years, guys. But once again, thank you and hope to see you in my next video. Peace out.